In this video, I'm going to show you how to use nested loops to solve a problem. And a nested loop is when you have a loop inside of another loop. So here's my problem specification. At the beginning of every year, Khalid receives a raise on his previous year's salary. He wants a program that calculates and displays the amount of his annual raises for the next 3 years using rates of 3%, 4%, 5%, and 6%. So for me, sometimes I find it really helpful if I sketch the output, what I think it should look like before I try to solve the problem. That gives me a better idea of what I'm trying to do. So here's my little sketch of the output. So I know he's going to have to enter his current salary to start. And then I have some headings here because I just think that looks nice. And I'm going to show the raise percents. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are going to be my rows. And then here's what I'm going to calculate. We just use x's as placeholders. When it runs, that'll be actual numbers, it won't be x's. But just to kind of see what the output will look like or how it's going to lay out on the screen. So the logic of this, we're going to enter the current salary, and then using the raise percent of 3, I'm going to display what his salary would be at the end of year 1 with the 3% raise, and at the end of year 2 with the 3% raise, and the end of year 3 with the 3% raise. So I will take the salary, multiply it by 3%, and that will give me the raise for year 1. Then I'll add that raise to the salary, multiply it by 3%, the new salary by 3%, and that will give me the raise for year 2. I'll add that raise to the salary, because we're compounding it, multiply it by 3%, and that will give me the raise for year 3. Then I'm going to do the same thing with a 4% raise, a 5% raise, and a 6% raise. But each time I do that, I have to go back and use my initial salary. So I'm going to need another variable in there to hold things. Kind of looks, if you look at this at first, it looks like I have 12 output variables, but I really don't. I just have one, it's the raise amount, and I'm just going to calculate it and display it, calculate it and display it, calculate it and display it. So it's really only one output variable. It's just being displayed 12 times. Now probably the hardest thing with these nested loops is figuring out which is the outer loop and which is the inner loop. What loop goes inside what loop. And it's really like sorting. You have to break it down into groups, a larger group and then things within the group. So my larger groups here are the raise percentages. So I'll have a raise percent, and then I'll do the year 1, year 2, year 3. Then I'll add to the raise percent. Do year 1, year 2, year 3. So the year is happening more often than the raises. That's how I know that the year is going to be the inner loop, and the raise is going to be the outer loop. The outer loop happens less times. The inner loop happens more times. So if you want to think of loops like a clock, like the second hand is your innermost loop. That goes around the most times. And then the minute hand would be your middle loop, and then your outer loop would be the hour hand. So it's groups within groups. The thing that happens the most often is going to be your innermost loop. Okay, so I've already typed this logic here, and it's kind of what I just explained. So I'm going to have a processing variable called salary, and I'm going to use that because I have to preserve my initial salary. After I calculate the salaries for the 3% raise, then I have to use this initial salary again, calculate the 4%, and the initial salary to start calculating the 5%. So I have to preserve that. I can't change it during processing. So here's my logic. Enter the initial salary. Okay, that's this code. Display the headings. That would make this happen. Now repeat 4 times. This is my outer loop. What I'm going to repeat 4 times is the raise percent. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So what's going to happen there? First, I'm going to initialize the salary to the initial salary. So now salary, the one I can modify, is going to include the initial salary. The initial salary will not be changed then. Display the raise percent. That's that. Then I'm going to repeat 3 times. What am I going to repeat 3 times? The years. So My raise amount will be the salary times the raise percent, in this case 3. And then I'm going to display the raise amount. That gets me this one. Add the raise amount to the salary, because I'm going to need that to calculate the second year. And then I'm going to add 1 to my year. So now I'm here. Okay. And that was loop 1. Now I'm on loop 2. So the raise amount is going to be the salary times the raise percent. So display the raise amount. That's my new raise amount. Add the raise amount to the salary. Okay. Add 1 to the year. Now I'm on loop 3. Calculate my raise and display it. Okay. And my repeat. So that just ended one iteration of this inner loop. Now I'm going to add 1 to the raise percent and come back up here to my repeat 4 times. Okay. So now my raise percent is 4. I'm going to reinitialize my salary to the initial salary. So salary is now initial salary again. Initial amount they entered, the original salary. Display the raise amount. Now I'm down here at 4. And then I'm going to repeat this loop, finding my salaries for the 3 years, my raises for the 3 years. Add 1 to my raise percent, and then do my inner loop 3 times. So that's how the logic is going to occur. Down here somewhere is the code to do that. So know how to initialize variables, our housekeeping, our set precision. The input, enter the starting salary. And let's bring this down so we can see that. Okay, so enter the starting salary. That was my prompt here. Here's a code for that. Here's a code for the headings. Okay, now my for loop. For in percent equals 3, we're starting at 3%, so I'm going to initialize this percent at 3. I'm going to do it while it's less than or equal to 6, so my ending value here is 6. And I'm going to add to it every time I go around the loop. The plus plus adds 1. So salary is equal to my initial salary. I'm going to see out, new line, the percent itself, and then the percent sign. That's going to get me this. The first time around, the percent is 3. So I'm going to get the number 3 for percent, and then the percent symbol, because I have that hard-coded there. Now, here's my inner loop, which is doing this. These are counted loops. We know exactly how many times they're going to occur. That's why we're using the for, because that's the best structure for a counted loop. So here I have years starting at 1. I have my year 1, year 2, year 3. I do it while it's less than or equal to 3, and I add to the year at the end of every loop. So here when we say increase the year, that's really happening in my heading for my for loop. Remember, this will happen at the end of the loop. When we say add 1 to the raise percent, that's happening up here in my header for the loop. Okay. You need curly braces to mark the beginning and the ends of the loop. This is the end of the inner. And this one is the end of the outer. And transfer that code over here and run it, and you can see what it looks like. So we'll do this with a starting salary of 10,000 because we can do that in our head. And if we go through and look at this 3%, year 1, your raise would be $300. Yep, that's right. $309 for year 2 and $318.27 for year 3. So if we get out our calculator and figure that out, that is correct. 4% based on 10,000, the initial value, 400, 416, 423. And it continues down through. So that's your nested loop.